What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my mega college football playoff preview. This is going to be a very, very exciting time, right? New Year's Eve, college football playoff, staying up till midnight. What could be better than to kickstart your way into 2023? You end on a high in 2022, and that's what all four of these teams are going to be looking to accomplish. But only two of these teams can ride into 2023 and play for a national championship game. So who will play in the national championship game? You're going to get my thoughts here in a little bit. But before we go ahead and start with all that, hey, thank you guys so much for the support on the channel this entire season. If you want to hear me talk, though, about college football when we don't have games on Saturdays and when we don't have games playing, please hit the subscribe button, leave a like, comment, anything you can to help support the channel. It really does mean a lot to me, especially, though, hitting that subscribe button, ringing the bell so you know when I upload. Guys, this is going to be a very, very exciting day. New Year's Eve, you got college football on. You're going to be gathered with your family and friends. What could be a better way than to spend your New Year's Eve and to ride in to the new year in 2023? Well, again, only two of these teams can go play for the national championship game. We'll start here on your right-hand side of the screen in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Michigan is back in the college football playoff after losing in the semifinal last year, and they are looking to shake off that semifinal loss last year and ride into this playoff after another win against their rival in Ohio State and yet another Big Ten championship game. And then TCU, a lot of people saying still to this moment, TCU does not belong here. TCU is not a playoff team. This is the second worst playoff team since 2015, Michigan State. Remember, they ended up getting rolled by Alabama. And frankly, me personally, I do not think that is the case. I think TCU and Max Duggan have proven they belong in the college football playoff, and I think they have proven that they are ready for this moment and for this stage. Meanwhile, going over to your left-hand side of the screen, what a lot of people thought before Ohio State lost to Michigan was going to be your national championship game, and we get it in the college football playoff semifinal. You give teams of this caliber a month to prepare for a game, and that's a very scary thing. Well, they're going to be going up against each other. It's the number one Georgia Bulldogs. They've looked like the best team in college football all season long. And can they prove that by winning the national championship in back-to-back seasons? First time since Bama in 2011, 2012 that they are going to be able to defend their title. Or first time since 2011, 2012 if Georgia can win back-to-back national championship games. And then you have Ohio State in here. To a lot of people's eyes, another disappointing run. However, it was an 11-1 campaign. You still lost to your rival at Michigan, but you've snuck into the college football playoff. You've been given second life, and Ryan Day and C.J. Stroud and this team have said all media, like in every single media thing and whatnot, that they are ready for this moment. Well, there's no better way than proving that than by playing your best game of the season on the football field against the reigning national champs in their backyard. It should be a very, very exciting college football playoff, and we are going to start with the game on your right-hand side of the screen, as it will be the first game to kick off. So, the Michigan Wolverines and TCU Horned Frogs, right? We're going to break down what each team needs to do when they have the ball. So, we're going to start here with TCU, right? What does TCU have to do when they have the ball? Or I guess, what should you look for when TCU has the ball? Well, let's go ahead and look at averages right now, shall we? The TCU offense is averaging 40.3 points per game and 473 yards per game. Sorry, let me back a second. I'm trying to get trains of thought here. Okay, TCU, the offense, all right, 40.3 points per game, 473 yards per game. I just said that, trying to regain my train of thought. Sorry. This, at times, can be a pretty explosive offense, but it's been an offense that's stepped up, especially in the second half and in big moments when it's needed the most. But this Michigan defense has been stout all year long. They're allowing only 14 points per game, 13 and a half points per game, not even 14, and then not even 300 yards, right? 277.1 total yards per game allowed on the defensive end for Michigan. It's a defense that loves to get the pass rush home and is honestly really good at defending the run. But Max Duggan has been a weapon for TCU all season long, and he's going to have to be a huge weapon in this game. He's going to need a big game. He's had big games for TCU when TCU has needed him most down the stretch, especially down the stretch in this season against some games like Texas and Baylor and some of those other games there as well. But this Michigan pass rush is going to have to get home. There's no better way than to put pressure on an offense than to put pressure on the biggest part of the offense, and that is the quarterback position. Max Duggan, if he gets under pressure and Michigan can force him to make some wayward throws, maybe even throw in 1 or 2 picks, that's going to lead super well in Michigan's favor. But you can't just worry about Max Duggan, right? There are so many weapons on this TCU offense, most notably Kendre Miller and Quentin Johnson, as they are fearful weapons, and they have been all season long. Well, the Wolverines are going to need to limit their explosive playmaking ability, and it starts with Kendre Miller, right? If you can shut down Kendre Miller and the run, and then you can use that focus on Quentin Johnson in the pass game, Michigan's defense should be really, really good and really set to go. There's no question that Michigan is the more physical defense. There's no question that Michigan is more physical when TCU has the ball. This is a very aggressive Michigan defense, and it showed that at multiple points this year. But what about when Michigan has the ball? Well, let's go ahead and look at Michigan's offensive averages, 40.1 points per game and over 450 yards per game. Hey, those are some really good numbers. But the TCU defense has stepped up big when it's been needed the most this season. They are averaging 25 points per game and 385 yards per game, which across all defenses that made the college football playoff are the worst. They are not even top 50 in those respective categories this nation. But again, when games are close down the stretch and when TCU needs stops, this defense is able to step it up and create the big plays. And it does that by getting pressure on the quarterback and doing the little things right when it matters most. Now, looking at Michigan's offense, though, right? With Blake Corum out, this is still a run-first attack, right? Donovan Edwards is going to run this offense, literally and figuratively. And TCU allows 150 rushing yards per game, which, again, I believe is not even top 50 in the nation. So TCU is going to have to find something here to be able to defend the run, because that's what killed Ohio State, that's what killed Purdue, and that's what's going to kill TCU here if they cannot get it done. If they cannot defend the run, TCU could be in for a very, very long game. And even if TCU is able to stop the run, well, J.J. McCarthy has found the deep ball as of late. The TCU secondary has got to stay home. Michigan has a lot of weapons like Cornelius Johnson and Ronnie Bell that J.J. McCarthy can throw it up to, and then being reliable options to be able to come down and snag that football, right? Well, what's going to have to happen here is TCU's going to have that mentality, hey, no one behind the safeties, right? The secondary's got to stay home, got to do their jobs. TCU on the defensive end, it's all about doing the little things right. And for Michigan, when you possess the ball, control the clock, because it's been your friend all season long, and it's definitely going to be your friend in this game. Keep that explosiveness of that TCU offense off the field. Let's go ahead and take a look at what to watch for in total. Again, all lines and odds are as of recording this video. So as of right now, Michigan is a 7.5-point favorite, although that can fluctuate. I've seen it as high as, I think, 9. And I think this is the lowest it's been in quite some time. 57.5 is that over and under. I do not expect this to be a blowout. I know people are saying that Michigan's going to run away with this thing. I've had buddies texting me their predictions. Someone said 45-17. I've seen 52-13. I've seen all these crazy predictions. You'll find out my score prediction in a little bit, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think TCU is going to go down easy. I think they're going to be very, very competitive in this game, and I think they're going to show Max Duggan and company that they belong on this stage and that they are a team to be feared, right? They're going to show out and put everything on the line, because TCU's already exceeded multiple expectations this year. People thought they'd barely make a bowl game, and they're sitting here in the college football playoff, for goodness sake. So there's no pressure on TCU at all. Go out and have a really good game. Both teams are going to have their fair share of explosive plays. Of course, TCU is going to have their moments. I think Michigan's going to have their moments as well. They're going to find gaps in this TCU defense, and they're going to be able to stretch the field and get some big plays down the field. But I think just the physicality of Michigan, especially on the line of scrimmage, is going to take over and just be too much. TCU keeps this game close for 2.5 to 3 quarters, but I think Michigan's physicality and their ability to wear down a defense with that dominant run game will take over, and Michigan has a late touchdown drive to put the game away. I got the Wolverines moving on to the national championship game with a 38-27 win over the TCU Horned Frogs. Again, both these games on New Year's Eve. You can watch this one starting at 4 p.m. on ESPN. A great way to kick off your college football playoff slate. Moving into the next game, though, this was a lot of people's national championship game before rivalry week happened, and we get it in a college football playoff semifinal. It is the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's take a look at what happens when Ohio State has the ball. And, well, it's been kind of the same story for most of this season, right? Ohio State is one of, if not the most dynamic offense in the nation. They are number 1 or number 2 just behind Tennessee in a lot of metrics this season. 44.5 points per game and 492 yards per game. That is amazing offensive statistics. They're led by one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in C.J. Stroud. They have, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the nation in Marvin Harrison. Really good stable of running backs, good supporting cast at the wide receiver role as well. Ohio State is a dynamic offense. But Georgia is a dynamic defense, right? 12.8 points per game and not only 300 yards per game. This is not the 2021 Georgia defense, okay? It is not that good. But it is still one of, if not, you could easily make the case for this being the best defense in 2022 and 2023. This is still a really good defense. It may not be at the level that it was last year, but this is still a defense to absolutely be feared, and Ohio State's going to have their hands full in this game. C.J. Stroud is absolutely dynamic. I've touched on that a little bit here, and he's got a lot of weapons. I've mentioned Marvin Harrison, but Emeka Egbuka has had a 1,000-yard receiving season this year. You have a lot of other playmakers in the wide receiver position and in the backfield. No Travion Henderson in this game. He went through foot surgery and is out even if Ohio State makes the national championship game. But you still have Mayan Williams back there, and you'll have Dallin Hayden back there as well. So the Buckeyes have a lot of dynamic weapons that Georgia's going to have to keep tabs on at all times. But Georgia, again, has a dynamic defense. What does that tell you? Something's got to give. Which side is going to dominate the game more? If you ask me who I trust more, that's definitely a tough debate, but I'm going to go with the Georgia defense. They've been really solid all season long. The Ohio State offense has seen their glimpses of things not going right and maybe some play calling not being as crisp, or just the execution may be off. Georgia's defense has been really good all season long, but this Ohio State offense is going to be up to the task. They are going to be ready to play, make no mistake about it. However, there's one part of the offense for Ohio State I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the offensive line. It's got to show out in this game. It's got to be physical, and it's got to be ready to push Georgia back, even if the offensive line or this offense in general gets punched in the mouth. Because there's one guy on the Georgia defense that this Ohio State offensive line needs to worry about, and that's Jalen Carter, guys. Jalen Carter is going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. He's one of, if not the best pass rusher, maybe besides Will Anderson, in the entire nation. He is a freak. He is an animal out there on the defensive line. And it's not only him. There are a lot of other weapons that Georgia has, especially in the defensive front seven. Some really good players in the secondary, but especially on the offensive line. Ohio State's offensive line needs to show out, and it's got to be ready to play physical. Ohio State trusts its receivers in one-on-one scenarios. They've done it all season long against some of the best cornerbacks in the entire nation. But this Ohio State offensive line has got to be ready for the test that this Georgia defensive front gives them. Let's move to what happens when Georgia has the ball, because I know the story of this Georgia team is their defense. Their defense, their defense, their defense. But this Georgia offense has still been very, very efficient this year. Why? Well, Stetson Bennett has been fantastic. Their run game is still really, really good. And this offensive line pushes people around like it's nobody's business. They are averaging 39 points per game and 491.9 yards per game. So almost 500 yards per game out of this Georgia offense. However, this Ohio State defense has been much improved this season than it was in 2021-2022. 19.3 points per game and just over 300 yards per game allowed. Jim Knowles has come in and has done an incredible job at preparing this Ohio State defense and getting them to improve as the season has gone along. However, this Ohio State defense has been scrutinized for the way that they played their last game over a month ago now against the Michigan Wolverines. And we'll touch more on that here in a little bit. But again, I mentioned it earlier, Stetson Bennett's been fantastic. The quarterback that a lot of people thought a couple years ago shouldn't even start the national championship game. It should be JT Daniels. They got to go a different direction. Stetson Bennett's not it. Well, he was a Heisman Finals this year, and he has been the guy, right? He has been him, as some people are saying out there, right? The Buckeye secondary is going to be tested because Stetson Bennett's got an arm, and boy, howdy, a very underrated part of Stetson Bennett's game is his ability to get outside of the pocket, be able to run the ball, throw the ball on the run there as well. That's a very underrated part. The run game goes without saying, right? This is going to be a good showing from the Georgia run game. So this Ohio State defensive line and the linebacking group have got to be ready for not only the Georgia run game, but for whatever Stetson Bennett may bring forward in this one as well, right? The Wolverines and Bulldogs. Back to the game against Michigan. Ohio State got torched by the Michigan run game, especially in the second half. And as soon as Michigan started to hit some of their deep passes, it was game over for the Buckeyes, right? It was the deep pass in half number one, and it was the run in half number two that just dominated this Ohio State defense. And the Bulldogs play a very similar style. They are well more than capable of hitting the downfield shot, but they want to beat you with the run, and they want to beat you with their physicality. Well, the Buckeye defensive game plan simply has to change, right? Maybe play single high safety, have that mentality. No one behind that single high safety or that nickelback, whatever you may want to call him. But Jim Knowles is definitely going to adjust his defensive game plan slider. Ohio State will be prepared for whatever this Georgia offense throws at them in this game. But Georgia still has a very efficient offense. It's a very efficient defense. And it's a Buckeye defense that's been tested, especially in the secondary. So we'll see what happens when Georgia has the football. Overall, what to watch for? Well, Georgia is the 6-point favorite. At one point, it was 6.5 for the longest time. I think the line opened at 8.5, something around there. So the line has gone down and fluctuated more towards Ohio State's way, over under 62.5. Quite a fair amount of scoring expected in this one. Georgia is obviously the more physical team here, and there is no debating that. I know Ohio State's physicality and toughness have been tested and especially questioned over this past month. Well, all the talk is that this team is playing pissed off in practice, and this team is playing really angry, and they're coming out here with something to prove. Well, there's no better way to do that than show it on the field. When the Buckeyes get punched in the face, are they going to be able to punch back with getting to the quarterback, getting Stetson Bennett down, protecting C.J. Stroud with that offensive line? Physicality is going to be the name of this. It's going to be the name of the game if the Buckeyes are going to want to pull off the win against the defending national champions. Here's a matchup that I'm going to be really interested to watch: Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kelee Ringo. You can make the case that is the best wide receiver in the nation, which I think he is, and one of the best cornerbacks in the nation in Kelee Ringo, and he's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick more likely than not. That is going to be a phenomenal matchup to watch. Expect one-on-one balls for there all game long, but in general, I'm going to be very curious to see how this Ohio State passing game does, especially in their ability to throw the ball downfield, because we know Georgia gets praised a lot for their defensive line, and rightly so. It's the best defensive line in the entire nation, but their secondary is really dynamic and good as well. This is going to be a dogfight. No pun intended looking at the Georgia Bulldogs mascot there. And both teams are going to have their moments to shine in this one. And I think this one's going to be a 4-quarter game. I think this one's going to be a battle. It's going to come right down to the wire. I know people are saying that Georgia's going to run Ohio State out of the building, and the Buckeyes don't have the Buckeyes don't have the capabilities to win this game, and they shouldn't even be here. And what is Ohio State doing? Why are they here? Ohio State's going to come out with something to prove, and it's very rare to say that the reigning national champ is not the one feeling pressure here. It's this team right here. This team is under the pressure. This team is under the magnifying glass, right? Ohio State is feeling the pressure. They're going to come out here with something to prove. When this game first came out, I was leaning Ohio State. And you guys know the jersey that I wear. And you know the colors that I support, right? But over the past month, looking at everything, absolutely everything, film, doing all of that, I know this is going to be a very close game, but the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be able to pull this one out. I got them winning an absolute nail-biter, 31-30. Ohio State's going to have some really good moments in this game, but I don't think the Buckeyes are going to have enough to be able to get past the Georgia Bulldogs, especially in the range of that physicality metric, right? I don't think Ohio State's going to be physical enough. I think that Ohio State's physicality is going to show out, and I think it's going to show up. I do not think it's going to match the level of the Georgia Bulldogs, and I got the Bulldogs winning 31-30 in the game, in possibly the game of the year. So with all that being said, I got Georgia and Michigan playing for the national championship, but please let me know who you guys have playing in the national championship game, because I really do think that either 4 of these teams have the pieces that it takes to get to the national championship game. These should be 2 really, really good games, and I cannot wait for tomorrow afternoon, and especially can't wait for tomorrow night. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, do anything you can to help support the channel, and remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.